Now, all of this talk early on about Judson being an unbelievably good disputant comes in handy because the Burmese people love to debate finer points of philosophy and theology, and they love to be combatant and dispute on every jot and tittle of ideas. And Judson found himself hour after hour, day after day, in these constant disputes with these fairly well-educated Buddhist philosophers and theologians. There's one point that Judson realizes that with just a few very carefully placed arguments, he could destroy the entire philosophy of many of the people that visited his house to debate him. Because the Buddhists don't believe that consciousness is a blessing. I'm going to assume some knowledge of Buddhism of my audience here tonight. Maybe some of you know nothing about Buddhism, but I'm going to assume some knowledge. Buddhists believe that self-awareness or consciousness is a curse. That's a curse. The only way to be healed or cured of that is to find enlightenment when you forget self and you become unaware. And this is part of why the Buddhists practice deep meditation and ways in which you're meant to shut off your mind or dismiss awareness or consciousness. Because they believe that every one of us is on this journey almost infinitely to arrive at a place of annihilation. That's what they call nirvana. When you're not aware of existence, you're swallowed up in the reality of the universe, which is unaware and unconscious. So Judson crafted this argument. He would say to these disputants, let me try and get it right because it's so well worded, and if I butcher it, then it's not going to be obvious to you how this dismisses the entire system of at least Burmese Buddhism of the 19th century. He would say to these disputants, he would say, temporary mind, temporary wisdom. Infinite mind, infinite wisdom. And Judson recalls in his journals that it was almost laughable, the response that you would see. He would say that these grand master debaters and these theologians and philosophers that spent all their day studying and reading and writing would come with a retinue of followers, their devotees, and they would come into the Zayat to debate Judson. He would use that one line, and he said you would see the philosopher drop his head and just kind of start to twitch nervously. And then his retinue of disciples and followers would all start just heckling him. They would say things like, "You are undone. Your whole philosophy is destroyed," because this is the reality. You can't claim to have infinite wisdom if mind itself and self-awareness and consciousness are temporal curses. Only the God of Scripture that reveals himself as transcendent has infinite wisdom. Not the God of Buddhism, or they don't really have a single God of Buddhism, but not the idea of philosophy. It can give you nothing. It can only give you temporary wisdom, because it's always only ever temporary self-conscious. Now, that may sound a little bit complex and convoluted, but Judson would report how so often his detractors would be undone